There's a hidden gem within the long list of existing game genres. Underneath all the FPS shooters, the platformers, and even the zombie survival games, exist atmospheric games. Ones like Abzu and Firewatch, where there's much less focus on the interaction of the player and much more focus on the scenery and the setting and the storyline. At first it can seem very dauntingly boring to play atmospheric games because it seems like you're not doing anything. It's like playing a point and click without the point and click aspect of it. You're just a third person interacting with a movie. But I fail to see how that's a bad thing. This day and age, we feed off of games where we have full control of what's going to happen. Whether it be Overwatch and TF2 where all your focus is on shooting, killing, and winning a round, or games like Rust and Shattered Skies where your goal is to kill other people and improve your own loot. Atmospheric games, however, take the focus off of the player. The player is not necessarily the personality controlling the game. Rather than your average single-player game where majority of the focus is on the combat system or the platforming or the puzzle solving, atmospheric games pour tons of their efforts into making everything pretty, filling up the game with golden music or dialogue or both. Think about it like this. If you were going to entertain yourself by leaving your house, you're probably going to either go to a movie or putt-putt or go out to dinner with friends. More than likely you'll end up spending money on some sort of activity. The money you spend can be anywhere from $0 to $1,000, but generally you're not going to spend like more than $100, and you're probably not going to spend less than like $20. And most of the time these activities won't last more than 5 hours. Likewise, atmospheric games are generally pretty short, lasting within the 2 to 5 hour range, and usually having a price range between $20 and $40. In other words, picking up an atmospheric game and playing it for 4 hours realistically isn't that much different from going to a theater and watching a movie. Obviously there's a social aspect of going out, but from a pure entertainment standpoint, it should not be considered a sin to drop a couple of dollars on a game where you're mostly just listening to things. At the end of the day, you're paying for an experience. You shouldn't be buying games just to waste your time. You should be buying games to become immersed in their stories. You want to get to know the characters that are within it. You want to get to know the world that you're playing in. These kind of games excel in that. They craft these worlds that you want to keep going back into, or at the very least, you want to see what happens to it. Telltale point-and-click games have a lot of this down too. While the player has a lot of power to shift where the story might go, by making a conscious decision in the game, or by manually controlling the player when they walk around, those generally aren't the main focus of the game, but rather the story of it is. A game like Firewatch is great because it's driven by its dialogue. You constantly have someone to talk to on your walkie-talkie, and if you don't want to respond to them, that's actually an option.
Hello? Whatever it is, just try to keep your head on straight, Henry.
So each time you play the game, if you want to trigger different dialogues, you can do that. The one thing I find annoying is that whether or not you change these dialogues, for the most part you're not going to be changing anything that happens in the story. Would have been a lot cooler if the way you treated the people you talk to would severely impact what happens in the game. Whether it be different events unfolding over time, or different endings, or even just different missions cropping up because you know someone better. Overall, I still think Firewatch was a fantastic game, because it's beautiful and it's really funny. But that's just a minor thing that I'd like to see improved in these kind of games. As for Abzu, it's not so much dialogue driven, but rather just exploration. It has a lot of sequences of you speeding through the water, or finding new areas, or just marveling at all the physics of the things underwater. These games are great for just zoning out and thinking to yourself. I can understand why these kind of games might not be most people's cup of tea, but I feel like it's a severely underrated genre that more people should feel obliged to try at least once. Coming from a childhood of playing MMOs, and teenage years of playing first-person shooters, I'm pretty used to the idea of grinding through games, so it's still pretty new for me to sit down and appreciate a game for what it is. A lot of people don't enjoy single-player games as much as they do multiplayer, and that's fine. But there's an inherent beauty about a game where there's no stress to beat it. A game where you can take your time on movement, where you can really cherish everything you see. The playtime might be short, but the experience lasts forever. If you don't think you're familiar with atmospheric games, you probably heard of Journey at least once in your life. A game that was praised for its atmosphere. Its co-op was intuitive. The person you met was now your travel buddy. There wasn't the stress of a zombie apocalypse. There wasn't the goofiness of a medieval rampage. It was just pure bliss.
Not that I know, because I didn't have a PS3.
Don't get me wrong, atmospheric games are not incompatible with other genres. Any game can have a purpose while still being atmospheric. Games like Breath of the Wind, which managed to merge the two seamlessly. Having more games like this on the market would be amazing. Any game can be atmospheric so long as it maintains focus on the beauty of the game. That's why developers who put their time into this should not go unappreciated. So if you haven't played an atmospheric game before, I highly recommend you try it.
No.
What do you mean no?
I mean, I'm not gonna play an atmospheric game, asshole.
I feel like I gave a pretty compelling argument to why you should try it.
Yeah, well, you didn't. Your argument sucked.
Okay, you don't need to call me
No,
names.
you deserve to be called named dipshit, idiot, fucking retard.
Fine, you want me to kill
Jump off
myself? I
stage.
will.
Fucking pussy.
No Man's Sky is probably gonna suck.